Hello, dear sleepy listener. You've found your way here, to this quiet space between moments. There's no rush anymore, just a soft hum of your breathing and a gentle question floating through the night like a paper lantern. Why are you aware of being aware? Not simply awake, not merely alive, but present in your own presence like a mirror that somehow sees itself. It's a mystery too deep for textbooks and too soft for loud minds. It asks nothing of you but your curiosity, the way a still lake invites the moon to sit in its reflection. Before you drift off to sleep, take a moment to like this video, leave a gentle comment about your favourite science moment, and subscribe to continue reading these bedtime stories. And if you're comfortable, whisper your location and time zone in the comments. Somewhere out there, someone else is listening beside you in the dark. Now, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let your curiosity drift among the stars. You lie there, weightless, suspended not in space but in something stranger in awareness itself, noticing that you are noticing, feeling that you are feeling, a quiet feedback loop humming beneath your thoughts, softer than your pulse. Most animals are conscious alert, reactive, navigating the world with instincts and senses. But you do something curious. You know that you're conscious. A squirrel doesn't sit in a tree wondering, am I a squirrel? A cat doesn't ponder the idea of being feline. But you glance in mirrors not just to check your hair, but to glimpse something more mysterious, that feeling of you-ness behind your eyes. Why? Why would a brain evolve this odd ability to turn its attention inward? You float down into the folds of your brain, tracing the curves of your prefrontal cortex, that area behind your forehead, glowing faintly with activity. Here, thoughts about thoughts are born. Here, self-awareness dances in loops of memory, intention, and reflection. You see yourself seeing. You remember remembering. You ask yourself questions and then wait patiently for your own answers. This isn't just consciousness. It's metaconsciousness. And it's rare. Among all known creatures on Earth, only a handful seem capable of this recursive gaze. Dolphins, great apes, elephants, maybe magpies, and you. You float past neurons whispering in chemical pulses. They don't speak in words, but in patterns, electrochemical rhythms playing across the network like music through wind chimes. No single neuron is aware, but together, something emerges. It's not unlike a murmuration of starlings. One bird doesn't form the shape in the sky, but all of them, moving together, create a living sculpture of air and instinct. In your brain, billions of cells fire in synchronized waves, and somehow astonishingly you emerge. You who wonders why you are. You who can imagine being someone else. You who can picture a version of yourself that doesn't even exist. That's the miracle of awareness. Not that it reacts, but that it reflects. Not that it functions, but that it questions. And there you are, a question in the dark, wrapped in warm blankets, a creature made of atoms, asking what it means to know that you are made of atoms. It's easy to forget how strange that is. You walk through life with awareness riding quietly in your pocket, like a stone smoothed by years of touch. But here, in this stillness, you hold it up to the moonlight, and you ask, what is this? Who is this? A quiet smile floats through your mind. No one knows for sure. Some scientists believe awareness arises as a survival tool, a way to simulate outcomes, rehearse choices, predict danger. a mirror in the mind to test your next move before you leap. Others see it as a byproduct, an accident of complexity, like heat rising from the friction of thought. And still, others wonder if awareness is not a product of the brain, but something more fundamental like space or time, something the brain tunes into, rather than generates. No one knows for sure, but that's not a flaw in the story. It's the beauty of it. You drift now, through your own quiet interior. The breath rises, the breath falls, and in between, the watcher watches, not for a reason, not for a prize, but simply because it can. You think of yourself not as a machine or a miracle, but as a mirror turned slowly toward its own surface. And in that reflection, something timeless stirs, an awareness that has been watching the world through 1,000 eyes in 1,000 ages. Tonight, it watches through yours, and it wonders. You drift deeper now, not into sleep yet, but into the hush between thoughts. It feels like descending through velvet fog, gentle, soundless, safe. Your body is still, but your mind begins to glow. There's a light inside your skull, but not the kind you see with. It flickers in patterns of bioelectric dance, in the small, quiet sparks that leap between neurons like fireflies passing secrets in the dark. It does not light up a room, but it lights up you, this presence that knows it is present. You glide through this secret place, through axons and dendrites, through bundles of living cables humming with the business as being you. And here, in this deep quiet, you can almost feel it, the low thrum of awareness running like a current, not loud, not obvious, but steady. The brain, after all, is not a shouting machine. It whispers, it pulses, it loops. And in those loops, awareness is born not once, like a flash of lightning, but again and again and again. The neurons don't fire in isolation, they fire in networks. In circuits that fold back on themselves, they send a signal forward and then send a signal back, over and over, feedback, like when you speak into a microphone and hear your own voice coming back, that eerie echo of self. Except here, it's not sound, but thought. This is the strange architecture of self-awareness, a loop that loops upon itself, thoughts about thoughts, a sense of self that references the sense of self, like standing between two mirrors and watching your reflection multiply into infinity. There are areas of the brain tuned just for this recursive noticing. The prefrontal cortex, of course, but also the anterior cingulate cortex, that curved ribbon nestled deep in the center, a region that activates when you're aware of a mistake or uncertain about a choice. It's the brain's quiet alarm bell, not shouting, but raising its eyebrows, suggesting gently that you notice what's going on. And then there's the posterior cingulate, linked to that mysterious default mode network, a set of interconnected regions that light up when you're doing nothing at all. No task, no goal, just being, daydreaming, wandering, drifting through yourself. Strangely, when you close your eyes and rest as you are now, this network brightens, as if the brain prefers to think about itself when it's not being asked to think about anything else. Some scientists believe this system is the seat of the self, a kind of backstage operator, piecing together your memories, your future plans, your quiet daydreams, into the idea of you. But is it really you, or is it just a story? A soft illusion, looping over and over so gently that you forget it's even an illusion at all. You float through these circuits like a breeze through old trees, and as you pass, You wonder who is doing the floating. You feel something, not a thought, but a feeling stir beneath the surface. Something wordless and quiet, like recognition without memory. It feels like home. You begin to wonder if your brain is not just an organ of awareness, but an ecosystem of it, like a coral reef, each neuron a tiny creature, each network a colony, all interacting, adapting, whispering around not one brain, but billions of flickers, humming together into the great glow of you. You never had to ask for this light. It simply came with being alive, and still, even here, inside the mystery. Questions float to the surface like bubbles. Why does it glow? Why does it know it glows? Why are we not only alive, but aware of it? There is no final answer, only gentle possibilities. Theories that hold hands but never fully embrace. Some think consciousness evolved to navigate complex social lives, to model not just the world, but other minds. If you can imagine what others feel, what they want, what they believe, you can survive better. But somewhere along the way, that ability turned inward, and you began to imagine yourself. You became aware of being aware. You don't need to solve the mystery tonight. You only need to notice it. The quiet radiance of your mind, looping and looping, not for glory or gain, but simply because that's what it does. It glows, it reflects, it gently whispers, "I am." And as you float in this glow, you feel it wrap around you like warm starlight. No pressure, no questions to answer, only the soft, radiant hush of being here, being now, being aware. It's a quiet thing. Isn't it the moment you notice a thought not just arriving, but arriving with company? A subtle observer tagging along, like a shadow that waits to be seen. One moment, you're simply aware. The next, you're aware of being aware. Like an echo that's aware it's echoing. You drift now, gently, as if floating in a slow spiral. The stars above your resting body blink like distant neurons, flickering in rhythm. And somewhere in the soft circuitry of your brain, a strange loop begins to hum, one thought recognizing another. A mind, noticing its own mind. It's here, in this quiet spiral, that metacognition lives. The brain, in its simple brilliance, does many things without asking for applause. It regulates your heartbeat, your digestion, your balance, even many of your thoughts, emotions, and reflexes dance through you without conscious intervention. But metacognition, that's something different. That's the brain pausing mid-performance to glance backstage. It's what happens when you think. Why did I think that? Or when you catch yourself worrying, and then worry about the fact that you're worrying. It's the mind folding in on itself, not collapsing, but reflecting, like a soft origami thought folding into a swan. You follow this folding process deeper. Thought becomes reflection. Reflection becomes observation. And observation sometimes begins to carry a strange warmth, the beginnings of identity. You're not just thinking. You're aware that you are the one thinking. But who is the you doing the watching? That question floats like a feather above your awareness light, teasing, impossible to catch. Some researchers believe this self-observing capacity is centered in what they call the executive network. This system acts like a quiet conductor in an orchestra, deciding where your attention flows, what matters, what fades. And then there are whispers of the insular region tucked deep within your cerebral folds. It's believed to play a role in interoception, your ability to feel what's happening inside your body. Hunger, thirst, a racing heart, a tight chest, awareness, not of the outer world, but of your internal landscape. Perhaps metacognition grows there, where the body and the mind begin to blur. You float past these silent instruments, the insula, the cingulate cortex. The frontal lobes, they don't shout their purpose. They simply tune you, like fingers on a dial, adjusting the frequency of self-awareness. And when they align just right, you hear it. An echo, a recognition, a soft I am, arising from nowhere. This echo is recursive. That is the strange part. You think about yourself thinking. You become the observer and the observed. It's not just reflection. It's reflection that reflects again. Some philosophers call this infinite regress, like standing between two mirrors, each one containing the other, shrinking deeper and deeper into endless versions of yourself. But in you, this mirror doesn't go forever. At some point, it becomes feeling, a feeling of being here, of being. And that's where words fall short, because awareness is not made of sentences. It doesn't narrate itself until we try to explain it. In truth, it may be something simpler, a flicker, a hum, a gentle noticing that does not need to be named. You drift again, your breath slow, your thoughts softer now, and in this quiet, you start to wonder, is awareness a tool or a side effect? Did it evolve to help you survive by modelling danger, by imagining others, by rehearsing possibilities? Or is it a strange byproduct, an emergent sparkle from the friction of countless neural loops? Some scientists lean one way, some lean another, and then, softly, another possibility drifts into view. What if awareness is not a byproduct at all? What if it's not a survival trick? What if it is the point, not the only point? Perhaps. But something so fundamental that it doesn't need to be justified, like gravity, like time. What if awareness is not just something that emerges from complexity, but something complexity reaches toward, the way flowers reach toward light, or stars reach toward fusion? You are here, now in this soft space between sleep and thought, are holding a candle that glows with the strangest truth you notice, that you notice. And though no one knows why this happens, it does. That's enough. For now, the room is still, the air is soft, and your mind is unfolding like a page being slowly turned by wind. You're no longer holding tightly to thoughts. You're watching them, gently, as if they were leaves floating downstream. And in this quiet river of attention, a strange thing appears, a question, not sharp or demanding, but patient, ancient, curious. How can something observe itself? You feel it now, in the core of your awareness, this paradox that has followed consciousness since its first flicker. You are the one seeing. But what happens when you try to see the seer? Can the eye look at itself without a mirror? Can a flame burn itself? Can a thought know its own origin while still being the thought? You drift through this mystery like a cloud brushing the tops of old pine trees. There is no need to solve it, only to sit beside it, like a companion. Awareness, by its nature, is always turned outward toward sensation, toward memory, toward the bright stars of language and story. But when it turns inward, it becomes quiet, elusive. It tries to grasp itself and finds nothing to hold. This is not a failure. This is the nature of awareness. It is both the light and what it lights up. And when it tries to look back at itself, the image flickers. It becomes what physicists might call a measurement problem. The act of observing changes the thing being observed. Even in quantum physics, we see this pattern: the observer affects the outcome. The photon behaves differently depending on whether you're watching. Reality hesitates, as if unsure how to perform in front of a mirror, and perhaps your mind is not so different. Perhaps when awareness tries to turn inward, it finds only layers, each one watching the last. A thought about a thought, a reflection of a reflection, but never the original source, never the pure I before it splits into the watcher and the watched. And yet, you feel it. You are it. There is something underneath all the mirrors, a hum, a stillness, a place untouched by narrative, undivided by roles. Not the thinker, not the thought, just the field in which both arise. You drift down, deeper now, toward that still place. And as you do, you pass through brain structures whose names echo like distant hills in a dream: the precuneus, the temporoparietal junction, the medial prefrontal cortex, regions that flicker in studies of self-awareness, regions that hum when you reflect on your own experience. They are not the source, but they are the stage, and you are both the actor and the scene. There's an old metaphor that comes to mind, one that flows easily in this dreamy night. Awareness is like a flashlight in a dark cave. Wherever you point it, you see a wall, a stone, a memory. But try to turn it back on itself, and the light disappears into itself. It cannot be seen. It is what sees. This is why awareness feels so intangible, so slippery, because it is not an object. It is not a thing to find. It is the condition that allows finding to occur. And still, we try, we meditate, we journal, we daydream. We drift like you're drifting now, not to escape the world, but to circle slowly toward the quiet center of being, the center that may not exist, not as a thing, but as a space, an opening, a quiet room where the wind never stops whispering, "You are here." And what is that place? No one knows for sure. Some spiritual traditions call it the self with a capital S. Others call it the witness. Some neuroscientists call it an emergent property of layered cognition, a fragile illusion that arises when many thoughts loop back in concert. But whatever you name it, you are feeling it now, not because you've grasped it, but because you've stopped trying. In this moment, there is no effort, no grasping, no definitions. There is only you, and not even you in the usual sense. Just the soft experience of being. You are not thinking. You're not sleeping. You're aware and aware of that awareness, floating like a candle flame in the dark. And that's enough. That's always been enough. Stillness has its own kind of intelligence. And now, as your body softens and your breath deepens, you begin to sense a curious presence within that stillness, a quiet theatre behind your daily thoughts. When you're not doing anything at all, it begins to glow. This is the brain's default mode network, not a single place, but a constellation, not a task doer, but a dream weaver. You drift through its soft corridors now, moving slowly through the back roads of your own mind. The posterior cingulate, the medial prefrontal cortex, the angular gyrus, all connected, all alive, all waiting quietly for your attention to wander so they can awaken. Odd, isn't it? The brain doesn't rest when you rest. It lights up when your focus loosens. When you stop trying to do, it begins to be. You know the feeling, that strange float that happens when you're walking without a destination, or staring out the window as rain traces lines down the glass. That soft drift between memories, daydreams, worries, plans. It's not directed. It's not efficient, but it's you. It's the you behind the you that performs. And it's here, in this default hum, that something important happens. Your sense of self weaves itself together, like a loom that never stops spinning. This network takes the fragments of your life, your stories, regrets, hopes, names, roles, and spins them into a thread you quietly call me. And yet, this thread is made of vapor. No one has ever found a single place in the brain where the self resides. It's not a throne, it's not a core, it's a pattern, a rhythm, a habit of awareness. And the default mode network curiously seems to stitch it together most powerfully when you're doing nothing at all. When the mind wanders, it returns to the body's past, it rehearses possible futures, it evaluates relationships, it spins endless scenarios. And within all of that movement, something like a self is born. Not a solid thing, but a process, a river, not a rock. You hover now at the edges of this strange network, and you feel something unexpected, familiarity, as though you've been here many times when lying on your bed staring at the ceiling, or walking through a forest without speaking, or listening to a song that reminds you of a version of yourself you almost became. This is the quiet hum behind personality. This is the soft projector that lights up the movie of your identity. And yet, some researchers wonder, what would happen if it were quieted? They've tried this, you know. In studies of experienced meditators, monks, long-time mindfulness practitioners' scans show a curious thing. When deep in meditation, the default mode network dims. The usual loops of identity fall away. The inner story pauses, and what remains, something simpler. Not I am this or I am that. Just I am. Just the glow of being. No story, no character, just awareness, resting in itself. You drift closer to that state now, not to become a monk, but to feel the quiet freedom that arises when you stop narrating who you are. You're not your name, you're not your job, you're not your past, you're the field in which those things appear. You are the light behind the movie, you're the watcher of the default mode network's dream. And dreams, as you know, are made of light, and light, as you know, casts shadows. But in this dream, even the shadows are soft. They do not hide. They do not frighten. They only remind you there is more here than you thought. There is place inside your mind that knows how to be quiet. There is a space inside your brain that weaves meaning without effort. There is a soft hum behind the curtain, and you, dear listener, are listening. Even now, even here. You are the ear turned inward, the witness of the default self, the light that watches shadows made of light. There is something soothing about loops. The way a lullaby repeats, the way a rocking chair moves back and forth, the way your breath cycles through inhale and exhale, over and over, like a tide, your awareness tool, too, moves in loops, and tonight you drift into one, not a visible circle, not a circle of motion, but a loop of thought, soft, recursive, continuous. A loop where the input becomes the output, and the output becomes the input again. A system feeding itself, gently, like a candle lighting another candle from its own flame. This is the nature of feedback in the brain. Not linear, not simple, but circular. And somewhere inside these loops, a ghost appears, not the kind that hides under beds, but the kind that whispers behind your eyes. A ghost made not of spirit, but of structure, a sense of I that arises from the looping of signals through time, a self that exists because the system sees itself. You float now through these loops. You pass the thalamus, that central relay station deep in your brain. Every sensory signal from your body passes through here. Touch, sight, sound, all routed, filtered, prioritized. But here's the strange thing. The thalamus doesn't just pass signals upward, it receives signals back from the cortex, from memory, from attention, from awareness. It sends information forward and then receives a response, a quiet check, a soft echo. This is what scientists call a feedback loop, when a signal is not just processed, but monitored, adjusted, refined, echoed. You feel it now. The sensation of noticing a sound, and then noticing that you noticed. The simple click of recursive awareness. It seems so natural, but it is strange. A machine that feeds itself information and uses that information to reshape its own behavior. A mind that thinks about thinking, and somewhere inside this loop, a self begins to whisper, "This is me." But is it? Or is the me just another output, another echo of the system echoing itself? You drift past the anterior insula again, that region linked to the quiet sense of body ownership. It tells you the arm is your arm, that the hunger is your hunger, that the pain is yours. But this sense of ownership of mine and me is not absolute. It can be altered. In experiments, scientists use illusions to trick the brain, placing a fake hand in front of someone, stroking both the real and the fake hand in synchrony. Soon, the person begins to feel that the fake hand is part of their body. The self is flexible. The loop can be rerouted, and that ghost of identity, it adapts. It stretches. It reforms to fit the pattern. What does this mean? It means that your sense of I, the one that feels so constant, might actually be a construction, a process, something built anew, every moment, by loops of sensation, reflection, correction. It doesn't mean you're not real. It means you're emerging, not like a statue carved from stone, but like a song played over and over, each time slightly different, depending on the room, the echo, the listener. You, the self you feel, may be the brain listening to itself in just the right way, in just the right rhythm, so that a pattern appears and sustains, a standing wave of identity. And when that loop is disrupted by injury, by sleep, by deep meditation, the self wavers, fades, sometimes disappears, and yet something always remains. Awareness doesn't vanish. Only the structure of the self shifts. You are not the ghost. You are the glow around it. You are not the loop. You are what arises from its turning. There is something strangely beautiful in this, the idea that selfhood is not a thing, but an ongoing act, a dance, a dialogue between brain regions whispering to each other, refining each other's echoes, looping softly until the pattern hums clearly enough to call itself you. And in this moment, quiet, resting, drifting. That loop is still turning, not urgently, not forcefully, just gently, like a breeze moving through wind chimes, like moonlight catching itself in a still pond. You're not watching from the outside. You're inside the loop, and you always have been. You are here. But where is here? There is a quiet space now, a stillness so soft that even your thoughts hesitate to break it. You are awake, but not in the usual way. Not watching from behind your eyes, not narrating, not analysing, just being. No watcher, no center, no seat of self. This is what some call pure awareness, a rare but simple state where consciousness remains, without anyone seeming to own it. It feels like the sky remembering itself. You are not thinking, but you are aware, not observing, but present. And without realizing it, you've stepped into one of the most elusive corners of the mind consciousness without a waker. In daily life, your awareness usually comes bundled with a narrator, that quiet voice that says, I think, I feel, I want. The voice feels like you, perched just behind your eyes, driving the body like a soft, sentient pilot. But tonight, that voice has gone quiet, and you begin to wonder, was it ever really you? You float now in the mind's soft architecture, tracing the scaffolding of perception, and you begin to see so much of what you experience arises without asking. You don't choose to hear the birds, you just hear them. You don't choose to feel warmth, you simply feel it. Even your thoughts often arise unbidden, like clouds forming on a blank sky. The thought says, I am thinking, but where did it come from? Who placed it there? You begin to realize something tender, something slightly strange. The I you often identify with the inner narrator. The chooser might be a character, not an illusion, exactly, but a useful fiction. Like a name written in the sand to help the ocean remember where it's been. Some neuroscientists believe the self is a model, a simplification generated by the brain to help organize experience. The model is useful, it tracks desires, it manages goals, it draws boundaries between your body and the world, but like any model, it's not the whole truth. And sometimes, when conditions are just right, like now, the model fades, and what remains is not absence, but freedom. You're not lost, you're not blank, you're simply here awake without a waker, aware without an anchor. It's not disorienting, it's peaceful, like floating in warm water, eyes closed, the world no longer divided into inside and outside. This state has many names. In Zen, it might be called no mind. In other traditions, it's presence, spaciousness, or simply being. And sometimes, it's described not as something you achieve, but something you return to. A place beneath the chatter, always there, always waiting. Your brain is still active. The thalamus hums, the cortex whispers, blood flows, neurons fire, but no one is claiming the activity. The usual voice that says I am doing this is silent, and still, awareness remains. You might ask, who is experiencing this, then? But that's the wrong question here. There is experience, there is breath, there is sound, there is light behind your closed eyes, and that is enough. The self that narrates would say, I am aware, but now something simpler rises, awareness, without the need for I, like the wind blowing without needing to explain itself, like the moon shining without knowing it glows. You are still here, but you are not local, you are not behind your face, you are not the thinker behind the thought, you are the field, the quiet space in which experience happens. You are the opening through which the world flows without labels, without stories, without even the need to say me, just presence, still, spacious, soft. You don't have to hold it, you don't have to understand it, it understands you, and tonight, that is all you need. There is a strangeness in the way you live inside your mind. You wake up each day in the same place, not your bed, but that soft interior world where everything seems centered around a single, quiet presence. You You feel like a point, a pilot, a knower. But what if you're not? What if the feeling of being a self-stable, central being is not what it seems tonight? You drift closer to that possibility, not to lose yourself, but to explore what you really are. A soft question drifts by like a feather. What is the self made of you? Wait. Not for an answer, but for the echo of curiosity itself. And into that quiet space comes a theory not to demand belief, but to stir imagination. It's called the self-model theory, and it whispers you are a model, not a controller, not a captain, but a beautifully detailed simulation your brain builds to navigate the world. It's a little like a hologram projected from within, stitched together from sensation, memory, prediction, and feeling. This model includes a body, a history, a name, a sense of being the one who is looking. But it is a representation, not the thing itself, not a puppet, not a trick, but a useful illusion. You float gently through the mind's quiet corridors, and the pieces of this model begin to show themselves. There is the body model, a continuous sense that your limbs, your skin, your breath are yours. It's maintained by constant sensory feedback. If that loop is disrupted, the model wobbles. In extreme cases, it shatters, as in certain neurological conditions where people deny ownership of their own limbs. Then there's the autobiographical model, your story, your timeline. The way you remember your past and imagine your future. It gives continuity to the you that woke up this morning and the you that listens now in the dark. But even this story changes. Memories shift. The narrative rewrites itself in small ways, smoothing out contradictions, and still you feel solid, real, continuous. Why? Because the model doesn't have to be accurate, it just has to be convincing. And your brain, this quiet storyteller of electricity and chemistry, is very convincing. It presents the self-model not as a theory, but as a feeling. I am here. I am someone. This is me. But what if that feeling is just the signature of the model itself? Like the smell of a candle is not the flame, just the trace of what's burning. You drift a little deeper now, and you begin to feel something odd. A lightness, a detachment, not cold, not distant, but open. Like seeing a character in a dream and suddenly realizing it's you, and even then, the dream continues. This is the beauty of the self-model theory. It doesn't say you're not real. It says the you feel is a pattern, delicate, dynamic, constantly updated, not a stone, a song, a melody that changes slightly every moment, but carries enough rhythm to feel familiar. You are not the model. You are what experiences the model. You are the light shining through the hologram, the mirror behind the face. Even now, as you rest, the model is still running. Your mind is maintaining the boundaries of self, the gentle hum of ownership, of center, of location. It gives you a place to rest inside. But you've seen a glimpse of the machinery, and it makes the illusion no less beautiful. In fact, it becomes more wondrous, because now you know even the sense of you as a gift, a performance, a graceful fiction spun by a brain that needed a center in order to move through the world, and the miracle. The model became the modeler. The fiction became self-aware. The illusion began to wonder if it was real, and maybe that question is what makes it real, not in the solid way a rock is real, but in the shimmering quiet way that music is real. You are here, and that is enough. Even if you are made of echoes, It's quiet backstage. You're still lying there, still breathing slowly, but now your awareness has begun to step behind the performance. You can almost hear the rustle of mental curtains being drawn, and on that tiny stage inside your mind, a play is being rehearsed not with actors, but with thoughts, and somewhere, unseen yet felt, sits the watcher, not the audience, but the awareness that there even is an audience, the watcher behind the curtain. Tonight, you drift through the layers of metacognition, not just thinking, but thinking about your thinking, a slow spiral upward through the mind's most mysterious heights, where cognition turns to glance at itself. Imagine, if you like, a little theatre. It's dimly lit, cosy, with a single spotlight on the stage. A thought enters nervous, clumsy, maybe excited. It takes the stage. It speaks. I'm not good enough. Or what if I fail? Or I wonder why I feel so calm tonight. And from somewhere in the seats, another voice leans forward. Interesting. Why do I think that second voice, gentle, curious, is metacognition? It's not the thought itself. It's the awareness that you're having the thought. And it changes everything. You see, most of the time, thoughts pass through you like weather unexamined, unchallenged. But the moment you become aware of the thought, something opens, a space, a pause, a distance wide enough to allow for kindness, perspective, choice. Metacognition lives in that space, and it's a quiet revolution. You float now through the neural regions thought to host this miracle, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, and the medial frontal gyrus. These are not just coordinates. They're instruments in a symphony that lets you not only think, but reflect. The anterior cingulate, for instance, helps you notice when something doesn't match a contradiction, a mistake, a misstep in logic. It's the whisper in your mind that says, wait, something feels off. Not to punish, just to notice. And in that noticing, awareness deepens. But why would the brain evolve this capacity to reflect, to simulate, to observe itself? Observing, some researchers believe it has to do with complexity as our brains grew more sophisticated. They needed better systems to manage internal conflict, to weigh competing goals, to imagine different outcomes. So the brain created a theatre, and in that theatre a director appeared, not a person, but a function, a watcher. And though this watcher feels like you, it might just be another role in the play, one that steps forward when needed and fades when it's time to rest. You float in this idea now, gently wrapped in the soft curtains of sleep. You see the stage, the lights, the moving parts, and you marvel at how effortlessly it all unfolds, how easily thoughts take their places, how naturally the watcher rises to meet them. You think of the moments in your life when metacognition saved you, when you were about to say something unkind, but stopped, noticing the urge, when you made a choice, and then reflected on why you made it, when you felt sadness, and then asked yourself where it came from. These are not dramatic moments, but they are profound, because in each one, the mind stepped outside of itself gently, briefly, and offered you the gift of perspective, of space, of possibility. Even now, as you drift in this theatre, the watcher is still awake, not straining, not busy, just resting, available. Should a thought arise, it will turn toward it not to judge, but to see, to wonder. And perhaps that's all we ever needed. Not perfect thoughts, not silent minds, just the ability to know that we are thinking, to step behind the curtain now and then and smile at the play. You don't need to understand every role. You don't need to write the ending. You're already part of the story, and the watcher behind the curtain is watching. What if you were never just one thing? What if you, the person lying here tonight, weren't a single centre, but a swirl, a galaxy of feelings, beliefs, sensations, and stories held together not by gravity, but by something quieter, something more human, like memory. You drift now into the softest question of all. Is there a me at the centre of me, or am I just a thought made of thoughts? The idea is as gentle as a snowflake landing on your palm. You feel it but cannot hold it. It melts into curiosity before you can give it a name. Inside your mind, there's no glowing orb of self. No glowing gemstone marked you. What scientists find instead is a beautiful mess, networks overlapping, fragments talking to each other, memory calling attention, emotion nudging perception, planning jostling reflection, and still you feel whole. Why? Because your brain is a pattern machine, and one of its most delicate pattern is you. You feel like a singular identity, but perhaps you're more like a flock of birds, flying in perfect formation, each part of your mind a memory, a desire, a voice, a habit flapping in rhythm with the others. None of them leads for long, and yet the shape flies. This pattern, this sense of me-ness seems to live in your autobiographical memory, where your brain quietly stores what matters. Not every detail, not every minute, but the highlights, the moments charged with feeling, the threads you string together when someone asks, "Who are you?" You might say, "I was born here. I love this. I've been through that. I hope for this." But those are just beads. The string that holds them, that's something more mysterious. You feel it now not as a solid line, but as a rhythm. The rhythm of being yourself. And yet, you're not always the same. You have changed. You've contradicted yourself. What you once believed, you may now question. What you feared, you may now welcome. The you of 10 years ago may not recognize the you that lies in the quiet tonight, and that's okay, because maybe there is no fixed core. Maybe you is a process, a slow, graceful dance between memory and moment, between the person you recall and the one you're still becoming. Neuroscience supports this gentle truth. The brain is plastic changing, adapting, rewiring. You're not fixed. You're fluid. The neural maps that shape your identity are constantly shifting with experience. Yet, somehow, a continuity remains. Not because your brain clings to the same self, but because it updates it. Over and over, you become the person you remember being. Not a single flame, but a fire constantly rekindled. And just as dreams stitch together fragments into seamless stories, your brain knits your identity from moment to moment. Even now, as you listen, it weaves your waking awareness into the larger story of you. Not because it needs to, but because that's what it does. It tells a story of coherence. It draws constellations in the sky of your mind and says, "Look, that one's called me." But what if the stars are always changing? What if the shape is never the same twice? Then maybe identity is not something you are. Maybe it's something you do, like breathing, like dreaming, like wondering. And tonight, as you rest in this quiet space between stars, you begin to feel the beauty of not knowing. There may be no center, no pearl hidden in your chest, only the dance, the swirl, the hum of thoughts noticing themselves. And in that swirl, fragile, flickering, beautiful something rises, a self made of selves, a thought made of thoughts, a being who wonders if it is, and in the wondering Bani becomes. Beneath the swirl of thoughts and the soft hum of identity, something quiet awaits. You drift down now, deeper than before, not into darkness, but into the still-lit depth of your brain's inner temple, the thalamus. It is not large, not grand, not loud, but it is ancient, and it is always whispering. The thalamus is your brain's gatekeeper, a small pair of symmetrical structures nestled near the centre like twin lanterns behind your eyes. Most of what you sense, the textures of your fingertips, the colours dancing on your retinas, the sounds brushing your eardrums must first pass through here, and the thalamus, quietly, asks, is this important enough to notice? You float beside it now, watching the soft glow of electrical pulses moving through its fibres. Sensory information arrives like gentle rain, millions of data points every second. And somehow, this small relay filters them, sorts them, decides what enters your conscious stage. It is not doing this like a judge. It is doing this like a breath, instinctive, rhythmic, effortless. It does not say no to sensations. It simply says, not now. And in doing so, it protects your awareness from becoming overwhelmed. You begin to see awareness is not just what's present, it's also what's excluded. A garden must be tended, a path must be cleared, and the thalamus is that quiet gardener pruning back the flood of the world, so that a few chosen flowers may bloom in your attention. This is how consciousness maintains its shape, not by expanding infinitely, but by narrowing its beam, by focusing, by choosing. And the thalamus helps you choose, but it doesn't act alone. It listens to signals from the cortex from areas associated with memory, expectation, desire. If you've been waiting for a text, a vibration on your phone will feel louder. If you're hungry, the smell of food will pierce your awareness like a song. The thalamus learns your patterns. It adapts to what matters to you. And in this delicate back and forth bottom-up sensation, meeting top-down meaning, your experience is shaped. You're not merely reacting to the world. You are curating it. And the curator lives here. You drift around the thalamus now, marvelling at how such a small structure holds such enormous responsibility. It is not just a switchboard, it is a sculptor of consciousness. And not only during waking, during sleep, the thalamus changes roles. It becomes a gate, closing, filtering, turning down the lights of sensation so that dreams can play. It pulses in rhythm with sleep spindles, those mysterious bursts of brain activity that flicker across the cortex during light slumber. Scientists believe these pulses help protect sleep. They guard the mind from being woken by minor sounds or sensations. So the thalamus doesn't just decide what you experience when you're awake. It also decides what you're allowed to ignore. It protects your stillness, like a librarian guarding a quiet room, and yet it never stops listening. Even now, as you drift close to sleep, your thalamus waits. One loud sound, one sharp touch, and it will spring into action, deciding in a fraction of a second whether to let the signal through. But for now, all is calm, no interruptions, just the thalamus, whispering its quiet rhythms beneath the rest of you. You're not conscious because of it, but you're conscious through it. It is the gate, the guardian, the the whisperer that turns sensation into experience, and tonight it rests with you, not silent, but serene, watching, listening, choosing with infinite gentleness what to let in and what to let go. Somewhere in the silence of your mind, a light begins to gather. It doesn't blaze. It doesn't shout. It flickers gently like the first flame of a match held in still air. You float now at the threshold of something strange, something most people take for granted every waking moment, but here, tonight, you watch it unfold from the inside out. You are watching consciousness become, not all at once, but like morning light pooling across a quiet floor. It begins with scattered sparks, tiny neural firings across distant parts of the brain, the visual cortex responding to the world, the auditory cortex receiving vibrations of sound, the somatosensory cortex noting the position of your limbs against the bed. Each part lights up. But this is not yet awareness. This is processing, a storm of localized activity data being crunched, analyzed, turned into meaning. But for a moment, these regions are isolated, like solo instruments playing their own tunes in separate rooms. What turns these flickers into flame? You begin to feel it now, the moment of binding. Somehow, all these scattered signals coalesce into a single experience. Not light, not sound, not touch, but you experiencing all of them at once, as one seamless whole. This miracle is called integration, and the theory that explains it or tries to is called integrated information theory, or IIT. According to IIT, consciousness arises when information is not only processed, but combined in a deeply interconnected way. When the parts of a system influence each other so thoroughly that the whole becomes more than the sum of its parts, like a symphony emerging from individual notes, like a flame arising from separate sparks. You're floating in that flame now, and it is not small. The brain, when conscious, becomes a web of lightning, vast neural loops connecting front to back, side to side, deep to surface. Activity dances across the cortex, moves through the thalamus, loops into the brainstem, back again, and somewhere within this dance you emerge. You are not in one place. You are not the spark. You're the flame. But the flame is fragile. It can dim. When you sleep, when you fall under anesthesia, when the loops quiet and the integration weakens, consciousness fades. Not disappears entirely, but becomes diffuse, like embers instead of fire. And still, even in those darkened moments, the capacity remains. The brain is always ready to reignite the flame, to return you to yourself, and sometimes, in the soft border between waking and dreaming, like now, you can feel the flicker in transition, not full fire, not full silence, but the threshold, the place where awareness leans forward, gently, to touch the world again. It's a beautiful thing, really, this flicker, this emergence, because it shows you that consciousness is not a command, it's a harmony, a joining, a slow awakening of many into one. And perhaps that's why it feels sacred, not because it glows, but because it gathers. You're gathered here now not only as a body, or a brain, or a list of memories, but as a convergence. The convergence is you. You are the moment when disparate parts align and whisper, in unison I am, not as a declaration, but as a flame. The room is still, your breath is gentle, and your mind is no longer only yours, because now, in this quiet fold of thought, a strange idea arrives. What if you are not simply a creature in the universe, What if you are the universe, noticing itself? You float in that thought like a feather on still water. There is no urgency, no need to decide, only the soft invitation to wonder. You think of stars, galaxies, atoms drifting in the dark. For billions of years, the universe expanded in silence. Gas cooling, dust gathering, fusion lighting suns, planets forming, ice, rock, oceans, storms, molecules stirring, and then at least once, possibly many times, something happened. A molecule arranged itself into life, and life arranged itself into mind, and mind opened its eyes and said, "What is all this that may have been the first moment of self-awareness on Earth?" But in another sense, perhaps a more poetic sense, it was the first time the universe looked into a mirror and saw itself looking back. You, the quiet watcher behind your eyes. You're not separate from stardust. You are made of it. Carbon from ancient stars. Water older than sunlight. Ions and atoms that once lived inside stars now flickering as brain signals behind your thoughts. And now those atoms wonder where they came from. It's not metaphor, it's history. Every hydrogen atom in your body was born near the dawn of time. Every heavier element forged in stars, or in the collisions of neutron stars, or supernovae violent, brilliant ends that became your beginning. So here you are, the universe in human form, not symbolic, literal, and somehow, impossibly. That same universe has arranged itself into a pattern so precise, so recursive, that it not only reflects, it reflects on reflection. You are not just aware. You are aware that you are aware. That's rare, perhaps unique. We do not know if any other planet holds minds like ours. We search, we listen, we dream of alien skies and unknown voices. But for now, all we know for certain is this. Here, on this small blue world, the universe knows it exists, and not just once, but over and over in you, in others, in every curious glance, every soft question whispered at bedtime. Why am I here? What is this all made of? What does it mean to know you think of the mirror again? Not the one in your bathroom, but the inner one. The mirror of awareness. The strange way consciousness seems to loop, reflecting not light, but existence. Scientists sometimes call it recursive representation, when a system contains a model of itself, not just functioning, but self-modelling. And when the system becomes so detailed, so tuned, that the model begins to feel like an identity, we call it a person. But the parts are still stardust, the energy is still ancient, and the mystery. The mystery is how it all became this. How did matter become mind? How did particles, which do not think, arrange themselves into thoughts? No one knows. Not yet. Some say it's an emergent property, the way patterns arise from complexity. Others believe consciousness may be woven into the fabric of the cosmos, waiting for the right arrangement to awaken, and some just smile and say, "This is the miracle. You are part of it now." Not because you understand it, but because you are it. Your awareness is not outside the system. It is of the system. It is the breath of the stars, returned as question. It is the quiet of space, learning to listen. And tonight, as you lie still and drift deeper into the folds of sleep, you carry that gentle truth you are not alone, because you're not separate. You're the sky, dreaming of itself. You're the universe, looking into a mirror and softly smiling. You descend now. not into darkness, but into the softest kind of quiet, the kind of quiet that isn't the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness, the kind that feels like it's watching you back. And tonight, that quiet is asking a question. Where is the center of you? You follow it inward, gently, past the surface layers of thought, past the voice in your head that narrates the day, past the images that flicker behind your closed eyes. You're looking now for the place inside yourself where you begin. Not the name, not the face, but the seat of awareness, the throne from which consciousness rules. And yet, you don't find it. You find thoughts, yes, emotions, sensations, memories, but not a center. No throne, no command post, no solid self sitting at the heart of it all, making the choices and holding the reins. There is awareness, yes, but it has no edges, no shape, just a field, a presence. It feels like standing in a house that has no center room. Every door leads to another memory, leads to feeling. Feeling leads to attention. Attention to sensation, and all of them lead nowhere and everywhere. This may seem strange, but it is not a flaw. It is the nature of awareness. It is not a thing. It is the space in which things arise. Philosophers have searched for the self for centuries, poking, peeling, meditating, analysing, and many come to the same conclusion. There is no pearl at the centre of the oyster, only the oyster, and yet you continue, because even without a centre, awareness continues. It watches, it experiences, it reflects, it exists. Like a candle that casts light in every direction but never sees its own flame. Some neuroscientists have tried to locate the self with scans and maps and glowing images of the brain. They find regions involved in self-reflection, in memory, in identity, but never a core, no neuron labelled me. And still, you feel it, this sense of being someone. So where does that feeling come from? Some think it's constructed, a narrative, a useful fiction that helps the brain organize experience, like a center of gravity, not a thing, but a concept that makes the math work. Others think it's more than that, that it is a kind of centerless center, a locus of experience without a fixed location, a mirror with no back. You drift now in that mystery, and you begin to notice something subtle. The more you search for the center, the more peaceful it becomes to stop searching. The self is not missing. It's just not locatable, because it is everywhere. It is not the speaker. It is the space in which speech arises. It is not the thinker. It is the sky in which thoughts drift like birds. It is not a point. It is a field, a stillness, a soft beingness with no need to declare itself. And so, you rest in that field now. No effort, no answers, just the quiet realization that you do not need a center to feel whole. You do not need a throne to be present. You do not need a label to be real. You are here, awareness watching awareness, silence watching silence, and it is enough. Now the boundaries soften, not just of your limbs, not just of your breath, but of your thoughts themselves. They begin to loosen their logic, unfasten their rules, and drift into stranger forms. You're still listening, still aware, but gently, gently, something else begins. A dream, and yet not fully. You're still floating just above it in that liminal space between waking and sleep, where thoughts dress themselves in the colours of dream but speak in the quiet voice of awareness. This is the threshold of REM. Rapid eye movements sleep the stage where your body rests deepest and your mind awakens in its own strange way. Here, the brain becomes as active as in waking life. The neurons fire, the images flow, the inner world ignites, and you begin to see again, but not with eyes, with memory, with emotion, with imagination unbound. What is a dream? Really, it is not a movie. It is not a hallucination. It is something far more delicate, an act of inner storytelling, woven from your fragments, sights you've glimpsed, people you've known, worries, desires, the shape of your room from childhood, the weight of your grandmother's hands. All of it is fair game, and yet the brain does not randomly scramble these pieces. It weaves, it constructs, it generates worlds where you can walk and speak and fly and never question how it all came to be, until you do, and that's when something extraordinary happens. Sometimes, in this dream space, a flicker of awareness returns. Just enough to whisper, "This is a dream." And suddenly, you are awake, inside the dream. This is called lucid dreaming. It is rare, but real. And it shows you something profound, that consciousness can exist even inside unreality. That your awareness, your very you-ness, can shine not only on the world, but within the world your brain invents. You think of this now, as your body rests and your breath deepens. You think of the paradox, a dream that dreams it's awake. That's what a lucid dream is. And maybe, just maybe, that's what consciousness is too. What if waking life is also a kind of dream? Not false, not imaginary, but stitched together from fragments of sensation and expectation, memory and prediction, just like dreams. What if your experience of the world is not a direct reflection, but a painting? Your brain doesn't passively receive the world, it constructs it. In waking life, and your brain combines raw input light waves, sound waves, touch with memory and meaning and language, to produce the rich, fluid experience you call reality. In dreams, it does the same. But with the theatre turned inward, and in both, the same awareness glows, watching, experiencing, becoming. Some philosophers have asked, is it possible that waking life and dreaming are only different in degree, not in kind? That what makes one feel real and the other feel unreal is not their structure, but whether you question them. Perhaps consciousness itself is what makes reality feel real. And now, as your own consciousness drifts gently towards sleep, you begin to feel how thin that veil really is. You've had dreams that lingered long after waking. You've had moments in waking life that felt like dreams. And through it all, there was a thread. You, not the character, not the setting, but the witness, the dreamer, the soft hum of presence that makes the world visible, even when the world is imaginary. And so, you settle now into that hum, not to disappear, but to dream, not to end, but to enter the next layer, where awareness continues, where thoughts become landscapes, where you remember how to fly, and the universe, through you, dreams itself awake. There's a voice inside your head, but it doesn't speak with sound. It doesn't use lips or lungs. It whispers silently, like ink flowing through invisible pages. And you've grown so used to it that you forget it's even there. Language, the quiet scaffolding of thought. You float now through that voice, not listening to its words, but to the shape beneath them, the structure that gives form to your awareness, moment by moment. You see, your thoughts are not just feelings, not just colours or memories. Many of them come to you wrapped in words. I feel tired. This is beautiful. Why am I here? And in using words to think, your awareness takes on a kind of frame, a rhythm, a grammar. You begin to wonder how much of what you are aware of depends on what you can say, not aloud, but within. Some philosophers and scientists have asked the same thing. Could language be the lens through which consciousness sees itself? Does it not only describe the self but construct it? You drift through the folds of the left hemisphere of the brain, now Broca's area, Wernicke's area, the angular gyrus regions that specialize in turning thought into language and language into meaning. When these areas hum, something extraordinary happens. Noise becomes narrative, experience becomes identity, and silence becomes question. Even now, you might feel it, the silent narrator in your mind turning sensation into story. A warm breeze becomes this breeze feels peaceful. A flicker of memory becomes I remember that day. But before the sentence forms, there was already awareness. So which comes first? Some say language is just the tool, a flashlight to examine what is already there. Others say it's the frame, and without it, many forms of awareness would remain dark. It's likely both. Language shapes what you notice. It gives edges to feeling. It lets you grasp the slippery parts of your own experience. If you have a word for something, you can hold it longer. If you don't, it fades. Some cultures have words for feelings that others don't. In Japanese, natsukashi means a sweet nostalgia for a moment that will never return. In Portuguese, saudade is a longing for something you love deeply, even if you're not sure it ever really existed. In German, Fernweh is the aching for places you've never been. These words don't just describe awareness, they create new spaces within it. You begin to see your awareness is not just what you feel, it is what you can name. Not because you need labels, but because naming is a form of touching, and yet the most mysterious experiences remain wordless. The taste of the sky at dusk, the ache of a forgotten song, the feeling you're having right now. You may try to name it peace, sleepiness, but no word fits quite right. That, too, is awareness, beyond language, beneath it, the silent question that knows itself without needing to ask, and yet language returns, not to replace the silence, but to reflect it, to catch just enough of the feeling to carry it forward, to share it with yourself, with others, with the world. Somewhere in your brain, language and awareness are dancing, each shaping the other, each inviting the other to go deeper. And tonight, as your body sinks towards sleep and your mind floats on this invisible current, you let both exist, the wordless feeling, and the words trying gently to hold it, like cupped hands under falling water. And maybe that's all you ever needed, not to name everything, but to know you could, not to speak every thought, but to feel the shape of its silence, and to rest in that space where questions breathe, even if no one is listening. All this time, your awareness has floated upward into thoughts, into memories, into questions about the self and the self's shadow. But now, something tugs, something older, something closer. You return, gently, to the body, not as a thinker, not as a shape in the mirror, but as a field of sensation, pulsing, alive, the silent partner that has held you through every moment you've ever known. You drift downward, not into heaviness, but into warmth, the subtle hum of muscles at rest, the rhythm of the chest rising and falling, too quietly to notice until you do, the weight of your limbs sinking, softening, listening, your body always listening, even when you forget. Even when your thoughts pull you into abstract places, your body is there, grounding you like gravity that whispers instead of pulls. And now, with thoughts quieted, you begin to feel again, not in the way you touch a surface, but in the way you remember you are a surface, inside and out. You feel your heartbeat not as a drum, but as a presence. You feel your skin not as texture, but as border. You feel warmth, not just temperature, but home. This is interoception, the awareness of what's happening inside your body, the stretch of your lungs, the buzz of digestion, the sway of your inner balance. All these signals, all the time, humming beneath the stories of who you are, and they shape you. Studies show that people more in tune with their bodies, who can feel their heartbeat, who can track internal sensation, tend to have stronger emotional clarity, more grounded decisions, a deeper sense of self, because the self isn't just thought, it's felt. You're not a mind carried by a body, you're a body that learned to dream, and tonight, your body dreams gently with you, no longer a machine, no longer a forgotten shell, but a quiet intelligence of its own. Even before you learned language, your body knew things. It knew fear in your belly, joy in your chest, sadness in your throat. It whispered these truths through sensation, long before you could describe them. And even now, when words fall short, it is the body that speaks. It tightens when you're anxious, relaxes when you're safe, trembles when you're moved, and it remembers. Memories are not stored only in the mind. They're carried in posture, in breath, in reflex. That place you avoid because it reminds you of grief, that smell that brings back a childhood joy, that song that fills your throat with something like tears, your body holds the map, and awareness. True awareness includes it. So many spiritual traditions return here to breath, to movement, to stillness inside the flesh. Because to be aware of your body is not to shrink awareness, it is to anchor it, to bring it home. You don't need to name every muscle, you don't need to chase every sensation. You just need to notice you are not in a body, you are one. And the more gently you notice it, the more patiently you listen, the more fully your awareness expands. You are this warmth, you are this breath, you are this rhythm that began before you could speak and continues long after the thinking stops. So tonight, let yourself rest not just with your body. Rest as your body. Feel its intelligence. Feel its memory. Feel its silent awareness, humming like a lullaby beneath your thoughts. It has always been with you, even when you forgot, especially when you forgot. And now that you've remembered, even just for a moment, you can feel how whole you truly are. Not a thinker trapped in skin, but an organism of wonder, a body dreaming, a mind feeling, a being made of light and weight and quiet knowing, and that is enough. You rest now on the surface of your awareness, watching thoughts ripple gently across the quiet waters of your mind, but just beneath them, beneath the soft stirrings of breath and feeling, something deeper moves. It is vast, it is silent, and it is you. Tonight, you drift downward into that unseen ocean of unconscious processes that move quietly beneath the surface of every thought you've ever had. Not unconsciousness as in sleep or forgetting, but the deeper kind, the one that watches you reach for the same mug each morning, that guides your steps when your mind is far away, that shapes your preferences, your reactions, your habits without ever announcing itself. This is the substrate of awareness, and it is teeming with activity. Your conscious mind, for all its brilliance, is just the tip of a massive iceberg. Neuroscientists estimate that the vast majority of brain activity occurs outside conscious awareness. Every second, your brain processes millions of bits of information and filters them, distills them, selects the few that rise into your noticing. But how does it choose you begin to see it now, the quiet mechanisms at work, the emotional salience your amygdala assigns, the prior expectations shaped by memory and context, the biases and beliefs, long ingrained, that tip the scales of attention. Before you even realize you're looking, you don't see everything. You see what the unconscious mind allows through the gate. It is not hiding truth from you. It is protecting you, filtering, simplifying, guiding. Because the full storm of reality, every light, every sound, every possibility would overwhelm. So the unconscious acts as a wise but silent navigator, steering the ship while letting you hold the wheel, and you float here now, beneath the deck, watching it work. There are loops of decision-making that complete themselves before your awareness even arrives. The muscle begins to move before the thought to move it is fully formed. The answer appears in your mouth before the question finishes in your mind. Is that frightening, or is it beautiful? You decide nothing alone, because there is no single you. There is the you that notices, and the you that prepares. There is the feeling that rises from the gut before the mind can name it a warning, a knowing, an intuition that speaks in the language of warmth or cold, heaviness or lift. And these signals, they are often right. Not always, but often. Because your unconscious mind has been learning. All your life, it has been pattern matching, rehearsing, recording, synthesizing. And now, it whispers to you not with words, but with inclinations, with instinct, with quiet certainty. You drift through the basal ganglia, deep inside the brain, where learned behaviors hum and repeat habits practiced so often they become second nature. You pass the cerebellum, balancing your movements without asking. You glimpse the hippocampus, storing your spatial memory, mapping the streets of your childhood even as the names fade. All of it silent, all of it aware, not in the way you usually think of awareness, but in the way a tree leans toward light, in the way your body braces before a fall, even if your mind has not seen the edge. The unconscious is not dumb, it is deep, it is vast, it is the ocean beneath the ripple. And tonight, as your conscious thoughts begin to soften, to drift, to dissolve into the edges of sleep, this deeper self remains, steady, steering, breathing, protecting. You do not need to monitor your heartbeat. You do not need to remind your lungs to breathe. You do not need to think in order to feel safe. Because something ancient is still awake within you. Something that has been here from the beginning, before words, before questions, before identity. A presence that doesn't need attention, because it is attention. And as you rest tonight, you feel it hold you, not with arms, but with rhythm, with warmth, with knowing. You're not just the thoughts you think, you're the depth beneath them, the silence that sees, the ocean that dreams. Let's try something together now. In this quiet place where words begin to loosen and identities start to melt like frost in the morning sun, try to forget the word you, not just as a sound, but as a symbol, a concept, a center. Let it go, gently. Let your name drop away like a coat falling from your shoulders. Forget your story, forget your face, and for just this breath, imagine what it would feel like to be aware, without anyone being aware of it. Not amnesia, not absence, but presence without narrative. Stillness without a speaker. Experience without the idea of a self at the center of it all. It's strange, isn't it? Your mind reflexively reaches to reassemble the self, to narrate, to point, to claim this is happening to me. But what if it wasn't? What if there was simply happening? Just the coolness of air against skin, just the weight of your limbs against the bed, just the quiet, and no one inside it saying, mine. You drift deeper into this space now, a space that some contemplative traditions have explored for thousands of years. They speak of awareness without ego, of pure consciousness, of the witness that does not witness as anyone. And here you glimpse it, a field of awareness that doesn't need identity to shine. It just shines. No name, no need, no center. It's not empty, far from it. It's full of sensation, movement, breath. But those sensations are not anchored to a you. They're just what is. What if this is the natural state, not a regression, but a return? A homecoming to what awareness is before it learns to carve up the world into parts, before it says me and not me, before it builds borders around the sky. Children live closest to this place, not because they are wise, but because they have not yet been taught to wear names so tightly. They don't see themselves as characters yet. They are experience, flowing freely, and you're returning there now, not forgetting who you are, just remembering that who you think you are is not all you are. You're not just a name, not just a bundle of preferences and memories. You are the quiet before the name, the silence between thoughts, the space that does not resist anything because it does not need to. There is no ego here to defend, no narrative to protect, no image to polish. There is only presence, and presence is enough. You float in it now like water that no longer needs to be held in a cup. It has become the lake, the sea, the cloud, and from this place, you begin to sense something deeper than comfort. You sense freedom, not the freedom to move or choose or act, but the freedom to be without explanation, the kind of freedom that only comes when you no longer need to be someone, when you can simply be. And isn't that what awareness is, at its core? Not a possession, not an achievement, not a reward for complexity, but the soft light that exists before the first thought ever formed, the hum beneath every experience, the isness behind the I. Even now, a thought may rise, but if there's no you, who is experiencing this, and that's the beauty of it, it doesn't matter. Experience is happening, awareness is glowing, and the need to name it falls away. You are here, without needing to be you, and it is peaceful, it is vast, it is still. So here you are again. You've travelled inward, downward, outward, and beyond through loops and mirrors, through silence and circuitry. You've listened to the whisper of the Thalamus. You've watched thoughts become flame. You've stood in the place where language fades and feeling remains. And now you return, not to a destination, but to a quiet realization. You are the star that knows it's shining. Not just energy, not just matter, but awareness of your own radiance. You are not light alone. You are the light that turns back and sees itself glowing, and you are one of the only things in the known universe that can do that. Think of it. The stars burn, but they do not know. The rivers run, but they do not reflect upon their running. But you know, you carry within you the impossible feeling of I am, a soft, unprovable fact, and that fact is enough. You felt its shape tonight. Not as something you hold, but something that holds you awareness that doesn't need a reason to exist. You didn't invent it. You didn't create it. You woke up into it. And now, as sleep begins to gather around you like a gentle tide, you return not to the self, but to the space that makes the self possible. Awareness itself, still shining, still listening, still here. And maybe, just maybe, you're beginning to feel how rare that is. Not rare in the sense of lucky or earned, but rare in the sense of sacred. The way ancient starlight is sacred, the way breath is sacred when noticed, the way silence, when held long enough, becomes music. You are not the center of the universe, but you are a place where the universe comes to reflect, a moment in time where stardust arranged itself to witness stardust, you noticing the noticing, and still not needing to explain it, because explanation is a surface game, but you've gone deeper. You've seen the self behind the story. You've felt the space behind the name. You've floated inside awareness without needing to call it yours. And that, dear listener, is the gift. Not knowledge, but presence. Not mastery, but softness. The ability to say, before sleep takes you fully, I don't know what this is, but I am it. You are it. You are awareness curled gently inside a body. You are the star, not merely burning, but knowing. And now, it is time to rest. You don't need to hold on. You don't need to finish the thought. The mind can loosen. The questions can fade. And what remains is enough. What remains is peace. So close your eyes, if they haven't closed already. Feel the weight of your body not heavy, but safe. Let the quiet beneath thought become your pillow. Let the mystery hold you like night holds the stars without expectation, without condition. You don't need to shine tonight. You only need to be. You're the breath before words. The flame before form. The presence that needs no proof. And you are not alone. You are part of the great field, that strange glowing fabric where matter becomes aware, and silence becomes song. Sleep now, star being. The light in you knows the way.